Hello everybody and welcome. We are on lesson 12. We only have 2 more lessons including this one. This lesson is on bearing one another's burdens. So this is a very important lesson, I feel, because in one area of the Bible it tells us to mind our own business. In another area of the Bible it tells us that we are to be our caretaker for our brother and our sister and other people. So how do you judge that balancing line? So let's dig into this, shall we? Okay. In the fight to produce the fruits of the Spirit while weeding out the works of the flesh, the Christian will face many difficulties. In other words, while we're attempting in our lives to produce works of the Spirit or fruits of the Spirit, while at the same time we end up also working towards removing works of the flesh, the Christian will face many difficult battles. Okay? He is overwhelmed at times, and he is encouraged to persevere by a tight network of brothers and sisters in the faith. So, how do you make sure that your walk with God is secure? The best way to do that is secure as many brothers and sisters in the faith around you as you can. So the more people you have around you that are of the faith, the more safer you're going to be, because when you are in trouble, if you're honest with them and tell them your problems, you're going to be able to lean on them in times of trouble. Okay? Those people must help you with your burdens. Not maybe, but must. It's a must. We are told by God to carry each other's burdens. We are told to lean on one another. We are told to encourage one another. We are told to think about what will offend our brothers, what will hurt our brothers, what will make our brothers sad, upset, whatever. So very often in the Bible, we're told that what we say and do has a grave impact on what others do in their lives, okay? But it's a rule. We must help, okay? It is only natural that Paul moves from the discussion of works and fruits to the responsibility of helping one another, because that is one of the first most rules with Jesus. Jesus was asked, what are the 2 top commandments that you have for us? And he said, 1, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. To love your neighbor means to care about them and to wish good for them. But more than that, to take on the responsibility of caring for them. Okay? So let me give you a personal example from my own life. Just for the record, I'm not bragging. I'm not showing off. Okay? So I was in the lobby today playing playing board games with some friends. While I was there was a lady who was in the lobby. She just started talking. She's like, I have a delivery for this so-and-so apartment. Okay. And she did not want to take the risk of going up to the apartment because of the whole COVID stuff for whatever reason. And so I could have left well enough alone. I could have been like, it's not my problem. It's not my business. It's not my responsibility to help out. But I was like, what apartment is it? She was like, on the 15th floor. It's 1509. I was like, okay. So I went up there and I got the food for the person. Turns out that the food order that the person received was wrong order. So later on, the person came back and switched out the orders. So I helped out with that as well. Now see, the point I'm making here is that in bearing one another's burdens, this lady was in a wheelchair. She didn't want to leave her apartment. Okay. And I could have let her figure it out on her own. I could have let the Walmart worker figure it out on her own. That was their responsibility. They are a worker for Walmart. It was their responsibility to take it to the person's apartment, which they should have done. Now, I could have left it there, but I felt for this situation, I wanted to be helpful. So I took it upon myself to say, okay, friends, can you hold on for the game for a minute? Let me go help out with this. And I did that twice. Now, that's not an attempt to show off myself. That's not an attempt to brag. That's just simply, I took it upon myself to take some time out of my day to help somebody else. And that is what it means to bear one another's burdens. But that's not just helping out. Helping out is just part of it. The other half of it is taking your time. Let's say you're tired, okay? Let's say you're exhausted. The other half of the problem is to go, if I'm tired and my friend is in need and I'm still awake, I'm going to sacrifice a little bit of sleep to listen to their problems, listen to their issues, and be a listening ear to them, because maybe all they need in their life right now is to vent. Hey, kitty. Okay, maybe that's all they need, is to vent what they're feeling. Okay, or maybe they just need someone to reflect off of, to go, okay, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I'm thinking, and maybe doing that, they can figure out if what they're feeling is a good thing or a bad thing. Okay? You know, kind of like get some clarity about it. There's something that happens with talking to yourself, talking to someone else. Now, when you're speaking what you're feeling, you actually get to hear it as well. Because before that, when you're feeling things, it's just in your ears. It's just in your mind. You know what I mean? You're not hearing it out loud. So it does, sometimes you can be confused that way into buying into some sort of lie. But when you say things out loud, especially when you're talking to someone else, there's a moment of going, oh, I didn't pay attention to that before. There's the answer I was looking for right there, you know? And there's some sort of thing that happens with that. That's why we're told to lean on one another. That's what families do. When families who are just like the family of God, but I'm talking about like your brothers, your sisters, your mother, your father, when you had problems, what did you do? Did you keep it to yourself, or did you go to your parents? Did you go to your siblings and say, I have this problem? You most often went to somebody else and were like, look, I'm dealing with this problem. What do I do? Okay. Or what kind of advice? Because you have a limited viewpoint that's based on your own perspectives. But if you change that viewpoint to a different viewpoint, okay, they might see something that you don't see. Okay. Another good example is, let's say you're trying to walk with God. You only see that you have a problem with anger or a problem with lust. But the other person who's your friend might see, well, you also have a problem with patience. You might not see that. So getting a different perspective helps a lot of times. Okay. So Paul illustrates that it's our responsibility to help one another, to be there for one another, and not just for our friends, who everybody does, but for our neighbors, for our enemies as well. Okay, here's what it says. Brethren, if any man is overtaken in any trespass, in other words, if any of your brothers or sisters, and that doesn't just mean in the church, it means anybody on earth, is overtaken or overcome by a sin of any sort, you who are spiritual, restore such a person in a spirit of gentleness, meaning you're supposed to restore them and attempt to restore them, attempt to correct them in a spirit of gentleness. Don't come at them and be like, hey, you're doing wrong. You should change and be better. No, that's not going to help anybody. They're going to be defensive. They're going to immediately get defensive and not want to listen to anything you have to say. But be like, I noticed maybe you're dealing with something here. I see that maybe you have some sort of hurt or some sort of issue going on in your life, and I'm just concerned about you. I want to be able to help out if I can. Okay? Spirit of gentleness. Considering yourself less, meaning considering your own life. What that's referring to is when it's saying considering yourself least, you also may be tempted. Meaning considering yourself lower so that you may not be tempted. Okay? So what it's referring to is those people out there that go, okay, they could do something, but I'm busy. I got something to do. And a lot of times, maybe that's accurate. Maybe you have to be to work at a specific time or you get fired. Okay? Maybe it's, you're on your way to somewhere and you're taking a taxi, so the taxi can't stop and help you to be nice to someone or something like that. Whatever the case may be, there are certain situations where you're unable to help out because you're currently doing something else. Okay. So there's many illustrations of this in the Bible. Okay. But this is referring to if you have the opportunity and you have the ability to stop and go. Let's say you're driving somewhere. You're going, I'm going to shopping. Okay. You're not really on a time clock, exactly. You have some extra minutes that you could use. If you're shopping, like when I go shopping, I don't have a specific time that I'm back home. I'm going shopping. I'll get back when I get back. Okay. So that allows me to have the ability to, in that situation where I'm not in a huge rush, I can go, okay, if something happens, but I'm on a bus as well. Keep that in mind. I'm on a bus, which doesn't just stop whenever you want it to, just to help somebody out. So on the bus, I can't just do that. But what I mean is, like, if I'm walking, I'm off the bus, I'm walking to the store, and something happens where I can help out, I should do that. And that's what this was referring to. Consider yourself lower in order to help somebody else. Okay? Like, so you have to sacrifice 30 minutes of your sleep to help somebody else. So you have to sacrifice minutes of your sleep. Or so you have to sacrifice something of your life in order to help somebody else out. Oh, well, it's a minor inconvenience, If you're stopping at a car and you're going, okay, I see that this person has a car and I have a car and their car is stalled and it doesn't want to start. And I have jumper cables in the back of my car and I have a car that's running and I'm not, I don't have to be at work at a specific time or something. I could easily just stop the car, pull over and be like, hey, do you need a jump? Okay, that would be good manners. That would be caring and bearing one another's burdens. Okay. But bear one another's burdens, and in doing so, fulfill the law of Christ. This is Galatians 6, 1 through 2. Okay. The law of Christ requires selflessness, which in this world today is very rare. In other words, very rarely in this world do you see somebody else stopping in the middle of their day to help somebody else out. That's a good thing. That's a good fruit of the Spirit to pick up and learn. Okay. Another way of saying that is like this. Learn in your life to slow down. When you slow down, you're able to see where God wants you to help out. And helping out only is your requirement if you have the ability to complete what needs to be helped out. For example, if someone says, I need help out, I need help because I'm unable and I need $500. If you're unable to meet that need, okay, you are there. See, the Bible tells you simply this. If you have it, give it. Okay, that's the basic Bible principle in a nutshell. If you have whatever you have, if someone's asking something of you and you have it to give, then you're required to give it by God. If you don't give it, then you're being self-centered, which is not going to bode well for your life. Okay, but this is a golden rule where the golden rule has been supplanted by selfishness. In other words, it's saying the golden rule of years before, treat others as you would like them to treat you. If you remember that rule, okay, that has been replaced with selfishness, where people are like me. Okay, Jesus taught that we should be willing to lay down our lives for each other. We should be willing to sacrifice of our lives for somebody else. Okay, a good example is the example I gave earlier about the person in my building. I didn't have to do that. It wasn't a requirement of me. I mean, by God's standards, it was a requirement because I had the ability to do it. But what I mean is, no one was forcing me to do it. God wasn't forcing me to go, hey, take out time out of your day and go help this situation. But if I'm looking to be more like Christ, it's my duty as a Christian to try to help out when I'm able to do so. Okay, that is something that the world is lacking. Jesus taught that we should be willing to lay down our lives for each other. We should be willing to sacrifice of our lives. Not just like, it's not just meaning we're caring about each other or talking to each other or being on the phone with someone, listening to their problems. It's going beyond that. You remember he said, if someone asks for your tunic, give them your coat as well. In other words, if someone asks you to go 1 mile with them, give them go 2 miles. So whatever someone asks of you, try to go above and beyond that. Okay, because in doing so, you show the Spirit of God in you. Okay. Although it is unlikely we would ever be in such an extreme situation, his use of the extreme demands make a good example of self-sacrifice. Jesus showed in his life ultimate self-sacrifice. Now, we're probably never going to have to get to the point of being, I need to be crucified for somebody else. Probably never going to happen in our lives. Majority of us are never going to have to deal with that, okay? But this is referring more towards the spiritual, the emotional, okay, and the time version of sacrificing your life for somebody else, okay? We claim that we would die for a brother. This is things that we would say. I would die for my brother. But when we're given the opportunity to come to his aid in another way, we ignore it. This is not the way it should be. So always be trying to help out if you can. The faith without works problem rears its ugly head again. You're driving in a car. You see someone on the side of the road who's in trouble. And you go, I shouldn't stop. I'm too busy. I got to be somewhere. But you're not really in a hurry. You could be at that place anytime. It's not like work where you have, okay, I have to be at this place at 6 o'clock. I have to make sure I get there on time. But you're driving, you're like, I'm going to the store. I don't want to bother my time. No. It's where you're going about your day. And God will present opportunities in your life to be there for other people. And you decide, I don't want to do that. I don't want to stop. That's where you become self-centered. That's why in Matthew it says people of the world in the last days are going to be lovers of self. They're going to put their needs ahead of other people's needs. And that's the problem in this world, is when you get into a habit of putting your needs above someone else's needs. So let me give you a different example. Okay. Whenever my kids were here, and these are my kids, by the way, okay? Whenever I went shopping for my kids, I went in a specific pattern, okay? So the things I would do is as follows. I would get rent first, then I would get food for the house, okay? And then I would start going on the list of what the kids need, what I need, what the kids want, and what I want. So I always went like this. Rent, then food, laundry, all that stuff that needs to be done first, child support and all that. Then once I got that done, then I went, kids need first. What they need comes first. Then my own needs. I put myself second. Now that's my own kids, but that's a good example of how we should be with other people. We should be trying to put their needs above our needs. So I would go, kids needs, my needs, then kids wants, because their wants, even though it's a want, their wants should be more important than my wants. Okay, so I would go, kids needs, my needs, their wants, my wants. That's how I would shop. Okay, the premise here, or the idea here, is that you're putting someone else needs or wants above what you need or want, and that's how you cultivate the principle of having the kind of heart that God wants. Okay, if a brother or sister is naked and destitute, meaning without home, or naked or destitute without food, and one of you says, depart in peace, be warmed and filled, but you do not give them the things which you needed for your body. In other words, if someone's without clothes, without food, and you have the food to give, and you don't give it, then you're being self-centered. You're denying the Spirit of God, because God is presenting you with that situation for you to be help. Okay? Even if it's at a sacrifice of yourself, even if it's at a sacrifice towards yourself, even if it's like, okay, I could use this money on my life to better my life, but I'd rather spend it for helping their life, because by doing that, I'm showing the Spirit of God. Okay, and this is principle that's going to be implemented in my life more and more and more on a daily basis, as I'm going to be training myself more and more and more to be doing that. I've already started training that, but I'm going to keep pushing forward to care more about doing for other people's lives first and doing for my life last. Okay, self-sacrifice, in other words. But listen to this. Depart in peace, be warmed and filled, but you do not give them things which are needed by the body. What does it profit? Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. This is James 2:14-17 that says that. Okay, this is in the Bible. Faith without works is dead. So I'm going to add to that statement. Okay, I'm not going to add to the Bible. I'm just going to add to that statement to clarify for you guys. Okay. Faith, it says faith without works is dead, right? But the reverse is also the same. Works without faith is dead. You could do all the works you want, but if you're doing it for the wrong reason, it's not going to matter to God. Okay? You going out on the street corner preaching the word of God, it might be a good action, but if it doesn't have faith at the forefront of it, if it doesn't have firm belief, and you're not doing it for the right motive of spreading the word of God and the truth of God, and you're doing it for your own ego or your own, or promoting yourself or building yourself up as what other people think of you. The point I'm making here is you can have works. Let me give you an example. There's multiple people in the world who will say, I'm a good person, look what I do. I help the needy, I volunteer. But they're doing it to boast themselves, you know what I mean? Because of their actions. They say, the point that you can tell that they're doing it for themselves is in what they say. Look, I'm a good person. Look at what I'm doing. So they want you to see what they're doing because they want you to boast about themselves. That tells you that the motive that they have is incorrect. Okay? So that's an example. You can have works. This is why later on in the Bible, in Revelations, it says, there's going to be people that go to God and say, God, I did this in your name. God, I did that in your name. God, I did this in your name. And he said, I never knew you. In other words, I didn't have a close relationship with you. You might have done these things, but I didn't have that close relation with you. You had no belief in me, so I didn't have any communication with you. Okay? And because of that, I don't know you. You're not coming to heaven. They could have done all the works that would have been good if they had the faith to go with it. Okay, so faith without works is dead. Works without faith is dead. Okay, this is hardly pure and undefiled religion. This is James 1:27. Okay. This is hardly pure and undefiled religion. Okay, they're not talking about religion. Well, get religion out of your head. Get religion out of your head. Why do I say that? Get religion out of your head. Because all religion is mankind's attempt to take something spiritual and turn it into a list of rules that you have to follow. Okay? So, let's continue. But it is spiritual. I jumped down. My apologies. I jumped up actually, not down. Okay. My computer wants to have a mind of its own and jump around. Okay. But it is spiritual. It is a spiritual burden, meaning it's spiritually a hurt to you. Okay. It's a spiritual burden that Paul has in mind in Galatians 6. A brother has been drifting back into, let's give an example. Here's the example it gives. A brother has been drifting back into the devil's boneyard. Okay, what does that mean? It means someone you know, the example they're giving is someone you know is playing around with fire, or they're being tempted and they're starting to head down the wrong path again. Okay, so they're starting to play around with fire, play around with temptation, give Satan an inch in their life, so to speak. And the other members of the body are presented with a duty to come to his rescue. They are presented with a duty to rescue him from his sin. Okay? But many will decide to ignore him. They'll be like, that's not my responsibility. It's not my responsibility to help him get out of his problem. But it actually is your responsibility. If your brother or sister is sinning, it's your responsibility to correct them and put them on the right path. If you don't, then what good is your faith? What good is your faith if you're not there other than, what good is your faith with God if you're not there to love one another and be there to encourage one another towards God? What's the purpose? Okay. So they will ignore him as if he were naked and the hungry man in James' example. Okay. We hope things will turn out right for him eventually, but we will not lift a finger to help him ourselves. See, that's the wrong concept. If you are presented, so I'll say it in a nutshell for everybody here. If you are presented with an opportunity in your life to help someone, and you have the means, meaning you have the ability to do it, whether it be food and you have the food, whether it be a coat and you have the coat, whether it be a cart and you have the cart, whether it be this and you have this, and you decide not to do it, okay, if you do that in that way, and you don't lift a finger, then you are committing a spiritual sin, because you're not doing what God requires you to do according to his rules. Okay. Now, a lot of people will not be looking at that favorably. They'll be like, so wait a minute, God's making me help someone? Yes. He's not going to force you. He gives you free will to say no. Don't get me wrong. But he wants you to do it. Okay. So it's his command that you help your brother or sister if you have the ability. If you choose not to, and you go, that's not my problem, that's not my responsibility, which we all have done. We have all had those moments where we could have taken time out of our day to help somebody in a sticky situation, but we chose not to do it for whatever reason. We have spiritually sinned in doing that, okay? Those who ignore a brother's spiritual freefall are not truly spiritual people. See, it's telling you, if you can easily ignore a brother or sister or another Christian or a person who's in trouble, you are not truly spiritual yourself. You're off. You're thinking you're more spiritual than what you are. It's telling you that you've drifted away from the God Almighty if you allow that to happen in yourself. Okay, according to the apostle. Okay, the law of Christ presents us with the obligation, not choice, obligation. Obligation means you are required. So let me give you an obligation. This world came up with an obligation that because of coronavirus, you are obligated to wear a mask. Okay? That's what obligation means. So the law of Christ presents us with the obligation that to help him gently correct himself. Okay? Gently. The word gently meaning carefully and with love, to correct them so that they will not continue sinning. We offer reproof, or we offer advice, and we offer encouragement in hopes that he might confess his sin and try harder to conquer his weakness. This is James 5:16 through 20. And I'm learning myself. You guys aren't the only one learning here. I'm learning. This is opening up a lot of my life in situations that I've been in where I've gone, that's not my problem, not my responsibility. When actually it is your responsibility, according to God. Okay? It is the law of Christ that we consider, listen to this, it's the law of Christ that we consider the welfare of others' souls. So what is good for them? Okay, others' souls. So it's important that we help out physically with someone. But this is more referring to doing things to reach their heart. See, God's ultimate goal is not that your body is going to be in good condition, although he does want you to be healthy. Okay. His ultimate goal and his foremost goal is that your soul is saved. That's what he wants. That's what he desires. So obviously he's going to put more emphasis or importance on your soul being saved than on your physical body having what it's needed. Okay. Good example of this is, trust me when I say this, God will have no problem letting your body starve if it means saving your soul. In other words, if he has to choose between letting your physical body starve and dying and saving your soul, he's going to save your soul. So in other words, if he's presenting with a situation where he's going, okay, do I let them die and save their soul? Or do I let them live and they become lost? He's going to choose, I'm going to save their soul and let you die. Okay. As that might be something harsh that people are not going to want to hear. Okay. And this might ring true with the whole coronavirus going on. Well, people might have asked themselves, why are my friends dying? Why are my friends and my family dying? And I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but I'm just presenting. Okay. Why are they dying? Because maybe God has seen that if their life continues, they're going to be drifting away from God and lose their faith. So he's going, okay, well, I'd rather in their life now, call their number, call them home, where they come home now, where they have a good relationship with me so they can be accepted into the kingdom. But if I continue letting them live and heal them, then they're just going to go down the wrong path, and then they're going to be lost. And then they're not even going to come to heaven. See, his ultimate goal is for you to be in heaven. So why would he do anything that would not bring you to heaven? Okay? If there's anything in your life that would not point you to heaven, why would he give it to you? That don't make sense. Okay? So how does the love of God abide in someone who sees a dying brother but will not try to offer the remedy? You get the point there? If you see someone dying and you have the means to save them, why would you ignore it? And if you ignore it, how is the love of God in you? Okay? It's not. My little children, let us not love in word or in tongue, but let us love in deed and in truth. Pay attention to that verse. This is 1 John 3:18. This says this. My little children. So this is God talking to us. Okay? Let us not love in words or in what we say. Let us love in action, what we do, and in truth. 1 John 3:18. So in your actions should speak what's from your heart. Okay? Some actually seem to rejoice when a brother is overtaken by the works of the flesh. Some people actually rejoice when they see people suffering. This is not the Spirit of God. This is not the love of God. This is not the person abiding in God. Okay? Let me give you an example. If my kid's mother sees me suffering, okay, and she rejoices in my suffering, then the love of God is not in her. Okay? And that's just being honest and true, and I'm presenting a personal situation as an example for you. Okay? The love of God would not be in her if she rejoiced in my suffering. Same for me. If I rejoice in her suffering of her life, then the love of God's not in me. Okay? But if you rejoice in sin, if you rejoice in evil happening, if you rejoice in anything like that, how is the love of God in you? Okay? Especially if seems unlikely from the start that he would remain faithful. So this is referring to if someone sees a situation of sin overtaking someone, okay, and they see that if this happens, the person is not going to remain faithful, why would they rejoice in it? That don't make sense. If anything, they would feel sad and they would attempt to correct them. Some feel they are elevated or lifted up when another is debased. So one of the problems, one of the reasons why people love to attack other people with words is because they love to drag them down to lift themselves up. This is a common thing in the world. You'll see it often in the world where they go, okay, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. They want to tear you down in order to lift themselves up. Okay, they want to lift themselves up in order to tear you down. So this is what it means by debase. Some feel that they are elevated, meaning that they are lifted up. They feel better about themselves when another is lowered. Okay, so it would be the equivalent of going, okay, I feel bad about myself. So if I can make you feel bad about you, then I can start feeling better about myself because I'm making you feel bad about yourself. So it's attempting to drag someone else down to your level. And that is one of the things of the world that happens so often. Okay, this world loves to do that. They love to attack people, to drag them down to their level. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, far from trying to restore their falling brother, they use him as a stepping stone for their own pride. So that is, in a nutshell, something the world does often. They look at somebody and instead of trying to help them, they go, okay, I'm going to step on you. I'm going to step on you and push you down even further. And that will help me feel better about myself and my own problems in my own life. But that's not God's way. Okay? Instead, listen to this. Instead, we should examine our own deeds every day and not compare them with others. We should not go, okay, I'm trying to walk with God, but look at my life. I'm going so slowly in my life. But look at John over here. He's going so faster. So there's an old video that I did called Compare and Compete. Don't compare and compete. Okay. And when you compare and compete with others, you automatically put yourself in the wrong mindset. Because what you're doing is you're trying to compare your life with theirs. And when you see that there's differences, you then start feeling bad about your own life and where your own walk with God is. I could look at a brother and go, wow, he's such a good brother in the Lord. And look how far he's gone. And then I could look at my own life and go, wait a minute, oh, I should be so much further than what I am. Because I'm comparing my life with theirs. You see where I'm going? My own life has its own speed. Everybody's life with God has its own speed and its own journey. Okay? You can't expect that your speed, someone else's speed that they go at in their life is going to be the speed that works with you. Good example is my friend William. He is deaf. He loves to be an outdoorsy person. He loves to be an outdoors person, a sports person, a very physically active person. I like to be at home. So that might work for him to make him feel content and happy. Okay, so him going out and sweating a lot and being sweaty and doing lots of working out, okay? Yeah, bud. Him going out and sweating and working out might be good for him. And him doing that would put him in a good state of mind. It might lift his spirits up. It might make him feel good about his day. It might make him feel like he's done something important with his day. But if you try to put that same situation upon me of going out into a hot summer day and sweating, it's not going to result in the same thing. Because when I get back home, or when I come back, or even when I'm out and I'm sweaty, I'm not going to be in a good mood. I'm irritated. I'm in a bad mood when I'm sweating. Okay? He might be in a good mood when he's sweating. I'm in a bad mood. So it means that what's applying to someone else is not going to apply to you just because you try to look at their life and go, well, if I copy what they're doing, it'll do the same thing for my life. No. What God says is for your life is what's for your life. So let me give you an example. I love to sing, but I don't have the best voice for it. Okay? I don't have the vocal sound. I have the pipes, meaning the windpipes, to do it, but I don't have the sound of the tone of my voice to be able to do it all the time. I can see that, okay? Or to do it in the best way, meaning I could not be a professional, okay? Now I might have the desire for it, but God might see that if He gave me that ability to sing really good, then I would go down a life of being a celebrity, and then I would be all about pride and all about myself and all about riches, and then I would lose my salvation because I would be more focused on my own money and my own things. You see where that's going. If God gave us everything we asked, a lot of times it would corrupt us. Okay? So be careful, be concerned about what you're asking God to give you, because if he does give it to you, it might consume you. And that's not a good father. Why would a father give something? The Bible says this, okay? If a child is asking their parent for bread, why would the parent give them a rock or a snake? They wouldn't do that. So God is the ultimate good parent. So why would he give you anything that's going to harm you or hurt you? He's not, okay? But let's continue, okay? When one person strays, we should weep and mourn. When one person is straying or having a bad day or something, we should weep and mourn. Paul says that we will all bear our own load. We will bear our own life before God on the day of judgment. In other words, everything we have and everything we've done and every choice we've made will be laid out bare before God. And he will examine every single choice, action, deed, word, motive that we've done in our life. And we will have to give an answer for every single one of them. Okay? Paul says that we will bear that. The day of reckoning will not be a beauty contest. It will not be a contest of, I'm going to compare how beautiful I am with how beautiful you are, with how beautiful you are, with how beautiful you are as a Christian. No, the day of reckoning will be a very sober day, a very sobering day. Meaning there will be a lot of people crying, sad, upset, because they're going to be looking at the fact that they've lived a life not in the way of God. And because of that, they've stopped some of the works of God from happening in other people's lives. Okay. The day of reckoning will not be a beauty contest in which a comparison is made to find the least pretty person. Okay. All of us will be judged on our own faith and obedience. So God's going to be looking at our faith as well as how often we chose to be obedient in that faith. Okay. What are some ways that we can share the burdens of our brothers? We can be a comforting ear. We could be a listening ear to their problems. We could be somebody who mourns for the loss of a loved one, or if they lose a loved one, we can mourn with them. We can provide food for those in the house of mourning. Okay, this is something that a lot of people do. Usually if there's a death, they will bring food, they will bring this, they will bring that. Why? Why do people do that? Because they realize that a lot of people do that. Here's what they realize. They realize that a lot of people do that because you have your hands full emotionally dealing with the loss of a death of somebody. Okay, so now you've lost that person. So now they bring you food, they bring you this, they bring you that. Now this most often happens in the home of the elderly. We can also, what's other ways? We can also help around the house for an elderly person. Okay, we can give material or financial help to a brother having hard times. Someone's having hard times food-wise, or someone's having hard times with their rent or something. We can give financial help, or we can give material help of our needs, of things that we have around the house. Okay. When someone is suffering, the rest of the body should be prepared simply to weep with it. This is 1 Corinthians 12:26 that says this. Okay? Because remember, we're all one body. So if one part of our body is hurting, it makes the rest of the body suffer. Galatians 6:6 speaks of people who are hearers. They hear the word, sharing themselves with a teacher. Okay. Sharing is a concept we drill into our children's heads from the time before they can even talk. Share with your brother, share with your sister, share with them. Don't hold it just for yourself. Share. However, we occasionally forget this lesson as adults when materialism infects us. Meaning materialism is that idea in the world of me, 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 me. I want to get all the things that I want. That's materialism. Okay? Infect us. We must be willing to share our souls with our brethren. Christians should not live detached existence from their brethren. Wow, that's heavy. Christians should not live lives where they don't associate with other people. This one hits me because I'm a big hermit. I'm a big person who lives inside my house all the time. Okay, and it's even telling me in this that I should not be living every single day in my household, not hang around people, but should make themselves a full part of the body in both good times and in hard times. We do this by sharing our burdens, sharing our day, and our abilities to bear those burdens with one another. Okay? And this is the end of this. So let's go to the questions. First question, how is the command to bear one another's burden? So how is the command given to bear one another's burdens related to the passage on the works of flesh and the fruits of the Spirit? How do those connect, in other words? Question 2, what is the golden rule? In what passage is it found? The golden rule. Golden rule is treat others as you would like them to be treated. And where is it found? If you can find that. Question 3, how does it apply to the subject of bearing each other's burdens? So how does the golden rule apply to the subject of bearing one another's burdens? Okay. How do they tie together, in other words? Matthew 18, 15 through 17 is an example. So it's saying, is Matthew 18, 15 through Is Matthew 18, 15 through 17 an example of bearing one another's burdens? Question 5. Do we fulfill the law of Christ when we let our brothers drift into apostasy, meaning losing their salvation, without any attempt to correct their course? Are we fulfilling the law of Christ when we do that, if we do that? And 2, are we spiritual when we do nothing to help? Okay, that's the second part of that question. Question 6, what should our methods and goals in attempting to help? Let me phrase that. What should be our method and goal in attempting to help a brother who is fallen back into sin? How should we attempt to help them? So, how are Christians sometimes guilty of loving in word, but not in deed? Okay. Question 8. Some burdens are not due to sin. Some burdens are not due to sin, but can lead people astray anyway. So in other words, some problems that we deal with are not because of sin that we've done. It's because of something else. But those same burdens can also lead people astray anyway. So what other kinds of burdens do people usually need help with? And what are some ways that you could help a person bear that type of burden? So it's basically asking you, what are ways in your life that you could find people that you associate with on a daily basis where you can help bear their burdens with them? Question 9. Why would some actually rejoice over a brother's fall? Why would people rejoice over a brother's fall, someone's fall? Question 10, last question. To what degree should we share ourselves with our brothers? Okay, and that's the last one. So the next lesson, so that's the end of this lesson. The next lesson to come is the very last lesson of this teaching, walking in the Spirit. Very last lesson. The last lesson is about sowing and reaping. So please pay attention next Monday to this lesson coming up. I hope that this teaching, this 13-week teaching, has been helpful to you. We got one more lesson to do and then we're finished and we're moving on. Okay? Thank you guys for your time. Be blessed. Have a good day. And think about how you can be a blessing to someone else. Okay? Have a good day.